Avon resident here. I'm on record in writing and just want to reaffirm my support for this medical office building that the NetScore guys are doing. I like to think of myself on the side of the aisle that's doing the deal maker and not a deal breaker. So my interest, again tonight, I want to reaffirm this, is to see this deal happen. My specific concerns are directed at the IGA between the town of Avon and the fire district and one particular provision that's in the current IGA. I want to raise my objection, and I'd like to share with you a suggestion that I have on how the IGA could be improved from the perspective of the Avon taxpayer. The fact of the matter is, you all are the elected board of directors of the town of Avon. That's who you are and what you do. The fact of the matter is, your job is to protect the interests of the Avon taxpayer. My single point is this: the town council has no business making interest-free loans to any organization. I object, and to the other people I've discussed this with during the week, of making an $830,000 loan at no interest. I don't think this is correct, and I think it's fiscally irresponsible to do this. So I have a specific suggestion. Also in the IGA, as I read it, is an agreement for the town of Avon taxpayer to spend money to pay for this architectural and design phase. Something the last time I checked was around $100,000. My suggestion to council for consideration is we subtract from that number what they want the Avon taxpayer to pay for the architectural fees, subtract off what the interest payment would be at normal market rates for the fire district, and subtract that off and include that as part of our IGA. Now, Madam Mayor, I have the video and watched this last week. I went through this to listen to your comments about what everyone was saying. And with all due respect, Madam Mayor, I disagree that the town of Avon taxpayer should be lending money interest-free to the folks who own property in Cordillera, Arrowhead, the Valley Club, Singletree, Eagle Vale, Minturn, and Redcliffe. It's not our job as taxpayers, nor you all with your fiduciary responsibility, to make interest-free loans with our money. Now, I will call to your attention the recent history of the Avon Town Council. We had a $2 million cost overrun on that stage out there. One of us would expect, and I and other taxpayers feel, that the council should be incredibly frugal, trying to recover that money as quickly as possible and protect us, the Avon taxpayer. Do you have any questions about what your responsibility is our elected board of directors, and your responsibility, fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers? Because I was very confused on some of the things I saw in the video. Okay, I will take that as a yes, that you agree with your responsibility.
Let's just open up a dialogue here.
Go ahead.
Let me see if I can understand this. We're not getting a monetary line item of interest on this loan, but what we are getting on a line item, which is hard to quantify, is the amount of community service that this will bring to the town of Avon. Is that not acceptable as an interest item? I mean, where's the line item for the value of what it brings to the community? How do you quantify that?
Well, that's easy to answer, Jake, because the fact of the matter is that approving the IGA and approving this agreement, which I want to see happen, won't result in a fire building or a police building here in Avon. In the documentation presented to the town and the fire district, they are still talking, fire district, about going to the voter in May 2016 to ask for some bond money so they can pay for this facility. We don't know if this facility will ever happen or if it's going to have any value at all, because until they can borrow the money, they can't pay for what they want. So your argument, sir, I don't believe is valid, because this thing isn't real yet.
I'm not trying to argue. I'm just,
No.
I'm at a point where I understand, and what I've learned being up here for a couple of years is that it's hard to quantify a line of the value it brings to the community. And that value, in my opinion, and I don't live up there, but the value, in my opinion, is that, Wildridge gets served faster, The corridor gets served faster. It's safer for the fire department that location is safer for the fire department to be in. Right now, that building is dilapidated.
How would you quantify the $2 million of additional debt we taxpayers have to take on because of what happened with the music stage? That's a lot of money.
It is.
I would
we're not
expect
talking
you all
about
and the peers to say, gee, we need to get a lot more in touch with the community. Every person I've talked to this week about this said, what are they doing? Why are they making interest-free loans? That doesn't make any sense. Every single person.
Pete, can I ask you a question?
Go.
So this is a joint facility. This will be a joint facility. It's not just a fire station. It is our police department facility as well. Does that have any impact on your position?
No, because we don't know if it's real yet or not. And real meaning we don't have a design, we don't know exactly what we're talking about yet, and we don't know what the exact cost is yet. So we're talking about a hypothetical. But the reality is that you still have a responsibility as the elected board of directors to protect our interests as taxpayers. So all I'm asking you to do, I think, is just do your job. And I want to see this deal happen, and I've come up with an idea I hope is acceptable. Figure out what this interest payment is, and deduct that from what the district wants us to pay and quote our share of the architectural fees.
May I make a couple comments as someone who worked on the IGA, and this is,
Sure.
and I think more in the spirit of really understanding what we're doing, and I very much appreciate the questions you brought up. The proposal to provide temporary financing first arose when there was a deal proposed for Nextcore to purchase Lot 1A and sell Lot 1B to the fire district. And the fire district had a shortfall in paying off a loan in order to help make that happen. We recognize two things. One is that they would lower their debt on the property by $2 million. The other is that we recognize under the current situation, it was very clear it didn't matter who was right, who was wrong, which taxpayer should be paying what. There's no way in the foreseeable many decades that the fire district could afford to build a new station on Lot 1A and expand the service to Avon and get the ladder truck up at Avon. And so that had been a paramount goal in the town's mind. Absolutely, at the beginning, it was recognized as very unusual to provide financing to another public entity. But as I understand Avon's history, ever since Avon divested itself of providing fire service, Avon has been subsidizing and not acting at a arm's length transaction with the fire district, primarily in allowing the fire district to use the town's land. I don't even know if we get $1 a year. They use the land for nothing ever since the fire district was formed and the town ceded that over. So I say that as background and to explain some of the thinking of trying to look at the larger goal. And but I think you're correct, and that is something unusual. And you're correct also in acknowledging that there's a lot of good faith and a lot of leap of faith as to where this may go. And my understanding was there was a real importance in not getting too far ahead and outlining a design process that the public could follow before there were final decisions made on whatever the facility may be.
Well, thank you, Eric. I'd also like to remind the taxpayers that Avon pre-existed the fire district, and my recollection, I believe, is correct. When the fire district came into existence, the town of Avon, taxpayer, gave our fire equipment that we paid for to the district at, I believe, 0 cost. So we're already into these guys as good neighbors. And again, I want to emphasize, I'm on the deal maker side of this. I'm not saying don't make the loan. I'm saying don't make an interest-free loan. It's not right. It's not our job as Avon taxpayers to subsidize Cordillera, Arrowhead, Singletree. You've heard this. Nothing I've heard back from you all so far has convinced me that we should make an interest-free loan. We have been good citizens to the fire district. And as to this new joint facility, we don't know if it's real yet. We don't know what it looks like because it hasn't been designed, and we don't know what it's going to cost or if the voters will approve it. I'm just asking you to do your job.
I definitely appreciate your input, and I do realize the district spans beyond Avon. However, we truly are talking about a shared public facility in Avon We are making progress. We met today to narrow down the field of architects. We are choosing an architect on Friday. We are moving forward. And if our public says they do not want a new police department and they do not want a new fire station, I say, ooh, that's too bad. Because if you go over here and you look at this fire station, it is so decrepit and so just awful. What we are doing is trying to get that ladder truck here in Avon where it's needed. We are trying to provide public services along our I-70 corridor, not to mention Wildridge. And as you know, when the Village at Avon breaks ground, it will more than double the size of our town. We desperately need this facility. And I can't even tell you how hard we have worked to join forces together to get this done. And if you want to, I'm happy for us to look into taking the possible interest out of what we will eventually owe them. But right now, the interest-free loan is truly a matter of working together with another public entity that, yes, your taxes go to. And how would you feel if Cordillera taxpayers say, to hell with Avon, we don't want that ladder truck there. We don't need a facility there. You know, we're all one big entity here, and we are paying in our taxes to the Eagle River Fire Protection District. I wasn't part of the decision that disbanded the Avon Fire Department, but it is what it is, and we need that facility for the safety of our citizens.
You seem to be interested in talking about a lot of issues around the issue that I'm bringing to the table, which is the issue of the interest-free loan. That's my concern, and I'm trying to focus on that and improve it from the perspective of what the Avon taxpayers being requested to do.
Yes, and your suggestion, I said, we can definitely look into that as a staff.
All right, and I will talk to Scott Wright. He's a good guy, town finance manager. Find out in today's market whatever that interest rate would be for a 5-year loan for that amount, and come back and notify you via email or whatever what Scott says.
That would be
So
great.
we've already
So
quantified that.
I can add at 2%, we had proposed to the fire district at 2%, it would have amounted to $55,333.
Okay, so there's a number that we could work with, $55,000. And then you're able to go back to your constituents and taxpayers and say, okay, we made this deal, we got it done for the next core group guys, and we protected your interests as taxpayers. That seems to me
I'm
to be
willing to say, as a
very
council person, that I'm willing to spend $55,000 of our taxpayer money on a project that I believe is going to ultimately end up giving us a fire station that will be in Avon, that will serve not only us, but the rest of the fire district, and giving our police officers a new station. I think that's a small price to pay.
Well,
for what
I
we hope.
disagree with you, and in fact, I've talked to people this week who disagree with that position. And I will call into your recent memory, I will remind you that when the referendum came into being and we had the historic vote in Avon, the position of the council was turned down by the voters by almost a 2-to-1 margin. So I believe, with all due respect, ma'am, you are out of phase with the Avon taxpayer and voter. Again.
I agree with Sarah, but I want to add something else too, that there's also a value of that spot that the fire department is on right now that could lead to a number of things that could bring value to this town and
I'm
the
not
taxpayer.
debating the value of the hypothetical facility. I just want to make sure that our interests as the taxpayers are protected, and these guys get the deal done. So I think I'm getting it to the point where I'm
Right.
talking too much about this. I think we understand where each other is at, and I will ask you to consider that seriously and encourage you all to get back in phase with the Avon taxpayer, okay?
I have
$2 million bucks over there,
Eric,
the
if I may.
referendum.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Eric, if you could just briefly walk through for the public the repayment schedule.
That's where I was
Um,
going.
If,
So the-
of how this loan will be
You
repaid.
can find this, he'll walk you through page 4 of 10 in your IG.
Eric, will you just walk through the
Sure,
numbers?
well, it's fairly simple. What the fire district proposed is that they would make, when I get this right, semi-annual payments twice a year of 10% of whatever the total loan amount is.
So, if I may, Worst case scenario, 830,000. 10% semi-annually is 20%. So the projected payoff is in 5 years. So this is a 5-year repayment schedule with 20% payments per year. So at the end of year 1, the balance owed will be 664,000. Is that correct?
I have
it's
to use
ju-
my
without
calculator.
interest.
I'll trust your numbers,
Right.
Scott. You're the money
So
guy.
I guess what I want to emphasize for the public is the repayment schedule for this loan is accelerated at a 20% rate, or not 20% rate, 20% of the original loan amount to be paid per year.
Correct.
Yes, and
And I have no objection to that accelerated rate whatsoever.
And maybe the real goal that we've been trying to focus on is that this would be a successful project where go through a design process, it's referred to the voters in May. If approved, it's ready to break ground next summer. Construction financing would be issued.
And Virginia, remind me, how much of the fire department's calls are Avon related? I seem to recall they said over 50%.
Yeah, it was over 50. I
Correct.
don't remember what it was, but it was over.
The other thing is the $55,000, if I'm correct, has to be adjusted to take out Avon taxpayers.
Right.
So the $55,000 is for the whole district, of which we are a substantial part of that district. Remember, Beaver Creek's not part of the district. Cordillera, good point, is. So Scott Wright could do that. But
Yes.
my back-of-the-envelope assumption is we are 50% of the district's assessed valuation, therefore it's 55,000 divided by 2. I'll do a little rounding, so it's really about 30,000. I think if we're going to look at the economics of this and really want to parse who's carrying what, the fire district is buying all the land and not charging us for any of the land through the design and construction period. So they could say, it's time for you to buy your 25% of the land. We're not going to carry your land for free at a much higher interest rate when they do the defeasance. So I appreciate the analytics, but I appreciate what's called, honestly, in economics, full cost pricing.
I have to object, Virginia, on this. I have to insist that the collective property values of Cordillera, Homestead, Singletree, Eaglevale are in excess of what the town of Avon's collective property values are, and they are a larger financial portion than we are. Okay, so, but I get the gist of what you're saying. I want to be fair. I just don't want to give away this money for free. It's not correct. It's not.
Art, would you
So-
be willing to see Avon pay our fair share of the land that we're not acquiring until the building is
Yeah, if I can
constructed?
elaborate on that, because Virginia, you do remind me, that was a good point in the IGA. The land price that the fire district's purchasing at is whatever the town's proportionate share is based on that current acquisition. And so if the actual construction facility happens in 3 years or 4 years, they're agreeing not to charge whatever the proportionate share of appraised value with whatever increase might happen would be in 4 years. And they're not charging us the carrying costs either with the bonds that they're paying to
We
have
don't know
that
what the
property.
appraised value of the land is, so this is a little nebulous conversation.
Well,
But look, you're tired, you've been here a long time, you've had dinner, I haven't. I've tried to make my point as politely and succinctly as I can, and I think I've made that, so I don't want to bloviate, because I hate watching video bloviators, okay? So I think I've made my point. Thank you for listening. Please consider it as you go forward and be able to go back to your constituents and say, we protected your interests, we didn't do an interest-free loan, and move this whole process forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for Eric.
Thanks, Peter.